Southern Colorado County has agreed to pay one of the largest jail death settlements in state history after a man died while in custody. Huerfano County has agreed to pay more than $10 million to settle a lawsuit over the 2023 jail death of 69-year-old Michael Birch. His family claimed Birch suffered severe injuries during an encounter with detention officers and was denied medical care before eventually dying days later. The county denied any wrongdoing and no criminal charges were ever filed. But I think that settlement speaks volumes, and the allegations in this case are so disturbing, and they're raising a lot of questions now about accountability and oversight, and I mean, really what happens behind jail walls. And joining me now is 9 News legal analyst Whitney Traylor to talk about this. I mean, the allegations in this case, I don't even like to look at the video, and I'm glad we didn't show it because it is pretty graphic. Let's talk about what happened inside that jail cell and how it led to this extreme, very high cost paying settlement.
Yeah, you said it right. The facts are pretty egregious. And this started out with Michael Birch. They were saying he was having a mental health episode, and he was in his cell with a pencil, kind of waving it around. And the police, the folks at the in the county jail, they came and they didn't de-escalate. They ended up escalating, and they tackled him against this metal bench. And he was severely injured. He was asking for help. And what makes this really egregious is they didn't give him help, but it was 8 days that it went on, and he was complaining. He had his torso was completely bruised, and so he ultimately died in his cell. But it turns out the coroner said that it was blunt force trauma to his chest. He had 6 broken ribs, punctured lung, intestinal bleeding, or internal bleeding. And they didn't do anything. So that's what led to this significant settlement.
And a 69-year-old man.
It was unbelievable. And with multiple officers, it just wasn't necessary to impose that much force.
So I am curious because we know the county denied any wrongdoing, no criminal charges were filed, but still, Huerfano County did agree to settle this case voluntarily. They didn't have to go to trial to hand over this large sum of money. Does that mean that they are admitting guilt or liability in some way? Because that's what I read into it, but legally, that's not exactly what it means.
Legally, it's quite the opposite. They're actually saying in the settlement, specifically, we're not liable. We are not admitting liability. And that's not unusual for folks who get into settlements, because the business decision, many times it's a business decision. How much exposure do we have? What's the cost of defense? How long will this take? Will we be exposed with the jury? In this case, a jury would have really, I think a jury could have come back significantly for sure.
Maybe even more money.
It could have been more money, and that's really the notion behind settlement, is this is the easiest way that we can get out of it. But again, they're not admitting liability, but this is a third of that county's budget. So this was a significant number, the whole 2026 budget for that whole county.
Why should someone who's never set foot in a jail cell or had a family member do so care about a case like this?
Well, your constitutional rights don't end just because you're in custody. And in fact, the system's obligation is to protect those in custody. And so this was a violation of his rights, and it's especially egregious when you think about these are the overseers of the community. These are the ones who are supposed to be protecting folks. And so being in custody shouldn't be a death sentence. And I know there's a lot of people who have a lot of pride in this country. We just celebrated the 4th of July, and there's pride in the history and its founding. But these are foundational principles that were established in the Constitution, that we're not going to treat one another like that. So to have that pride, there's also an obligation and a responsibility that we need to live up to what you're taking pride in.
Yeah, well said, because I think it's easy to dismiss a situation of an inmate, right? Someone behind bars for something that they've done, for saying that they don't have constitutional rights.
Right.
And that's not the case.
That's not the case, and this is really testing the system. It's sort of like this president is pushing on every front, and we're testing our democracy. We're seeing, okay, is it going to withstand this push against it? And so far it is. It's not pretty, and it's the same thing here. When somebody's in custody, this is the system really has an obligation, and here it was a complete failure, and they paid for it.
Yep, $10 million worth of a settlement there for the family of Michael Birch, but it will never replace their loved one.
No.
Whitney, thank you for your time. We'll be right back.